Andrew Demeter here on behalf of libertarianglobal.com, and throughout this video I'll express my personal perception of a utopian society. Now, as a pretext to this commentary, a utopia is often seen as a hypothetical paradise where perfection is profuse. But in my eyes, perfection is unnecessary in this oasis of romance, because while it may be unreachable, the intent is not that of constructing a utopia, it is rather of conceptualizing how you can realistically implement your ambitions into the world today. The change you evoke may be incremental, but it is equally intrinsic to the imminent paradigm shift, the termination of ignorance and selfishness, and the allowance and acceptance of liberty to prevail within our nation and ultimately the globe. Envision yourself situated in a tranquil, loose-fitting stature. The fringes of your toes gently caress the ebbing, sapphire waters before you. If you were a utopian inhabitant, you wouldn't want to disrupt such a brilliant euphoria of nature, right? That's where a fictitious eco-village comes into play. This strategic location is abounding with agricultural and natural aesthetics, resources, and fundamental necessities which occupants preserve and protect. Absent are the hazards of environmental impurity, but to engineer a prosperous utopia, it is crucial to conserve and sustain the pure habitat of nature and allocate land within that society in regard to animals and agriculture to manifest and maximize its fullest potential. Yet the theoretical self-actualization of a utopian society is unviable without the institution of core principles. While I don't encourage the fabrication of liberal precepts, I do advocate common sense practices, as I like to call them, which can be portrayed without governmental intervention. Some of these practices or truths include the stimulation of equality, tolerance, subjectivism, and a collectivist approach of prioritizing the interests of others before or beyond one's own self-centeredness. By endorsing and upholding these precepts, the welfare, freedom of individuality, yet collectivist orientation, and liberties of all will vibrate to and fro and resound in a charming tune of influence. An alternative theory, while it's criticized for its hiccups that could unquestionably dominate this figurative utopia, would imply quasi-utilitarianism. Regardless of whether or not my personal framework of beliefs in conjunction with utilitarianism would be effective in this utopia, I'd pay attention and consider subjectivist sub-goals to improve said society as well. Members or citizens of a society unrestricted by population are elemental in the progression, structure, and employment within a culture. That being said, who wouldn't desire the fittest member of a society or population to settle within their society? Personally, through extensive background research, I would select members to live within my snow globe of sorts, isolated from the corruption of orthodox humanity. I'll be forthright in saying that I believe people are inherently good, and likewise their social environment shapes them, independent on their approval or not. By actualizing this society, augmenting it one person at a time, an influential coalition of steadfast lowercase l libertarians would be bred to remediate the quantities of setbacks diseasing our nations and ultimately develop a confluence of global utopians. The criteria is quite simplistic: a non-violent criminal record, mental stability, affability, and congeniality. Through this technique of approval, the optimum individuals will enter the population of utopians, resulting in the amplification of freedom for all participants. As residents' rights are concerned, I would completely revamp and not detract the Constitution. However, any amendments made would require a unanimous approval to be ratified, and those rights shall not be infringed by any entity, body, or individual. Additionally, these utopian citizens would be emancipated from social stratification in a comprehensive effort to nurture equality and develop the required effort of all members to keep the community intact. These free individuals would restore order to their previously status-regulated lives and nullify a supreme authoritative puppet who reaps the benefits of the working class. Until the end of time, the comparative term children will be used to define the generation preceding working-class adults. So why is discussing children and the educational complex even relevant when formulating a utopian society? Because public schools, in a nutshell, are statist-run propaganda centers, and in my utopian society there is no form of government other than people governing themselves. Anarchy. But where's the correlation? What chaos occurs when the state no longer holds jurisdiction over the disinformation and mannerisms that are taught? A revolutionary opportunity presents itself. In this civilization, equality is prevalent across the board. Children are instilled with reality and possess the free will to govern themselves. They own the most valuable asset known to man, mental reasoning. The education system needs an all-inclusive overhaul, schooling for literacy and other staples. Because I deem primary education imperative yet advocate voluntarism, I don't care if that individual is self-taught, homeschooled, or a student within a communal establishment. Just construct the groundwork. Furthermore, once primary education has concluded, the utopian can advance their technological proficiencies to promote societal affluence and efficiency or progress towards a modified structure of higher education relative to their chosen profession. Similarly to rebuilding the educational system and studying necessities as opposed to the state-regulated dogma, I model a reliable persuasion towards a utopia based off of the anarcho-capitalist and libertarian ideologies. I champion the voluntary cooperation within a utopian society through a horizontal, non-coercive manner. But merely because I perceive anarchism as the answer to a destructive, liberty-stripping government, it doesn't constitute chaos. Lack of government plainly equates to self-regulation, as previously discussed, and a conservative political structure. Clashing against the bandwagon consciousness, anarchy doesn't cry out for the call to arms, revolt, rebellion, or violence. It's quite the contrary. It stipulates independence and the free market exchange wherein both involved parties benefit without the government partaking a role. Therefore, within this utopia, government is dispensable because the exclusive policy is to live and let live. The philosophy of living and letting live implies the abstract notion of freedom, liberty, that should be widespread in a flourishing utopian society. The key to sovereignty lies within the abolishment of currency, money, fabric that induces violent corruption, greed, and selfishness. Albeit be an effective medium of motivation, other means of encouragement are evident through praise, mental accomplishment, and spiritual gratification, for example, that don't contribute to the consumeristic state of our current culture. By halting the materialist perspective, the promotion of spiritual and physical compassion and awakening will reign with superiority in the face of adversity. In this esteemed utopian society, the production and logistics would be delegated among a specialized faction of utopians. In my eyes, a system of compensation would be enacted via an exchange between the parties involved, another exemplification of the anarcho-capitalist principle. And lastly, by commissioning a niche to respective skilled professionals such as medical majors, a more dominant field is conjured up. If multiple farmers cultivate and produce organic crops for the entire utopia, issues like disease and illness are widely eliminated, emphasizing organicism and physical well-being. Overall, increasing societal happiness in accordance with utilitarianism. A fruitful culture is not skeptical to modernize itself with recent technological and scientific discoveries. Within my utopia, this research and development would be encouraged across the board. But why? Because personally, every facet encompassing the technological realm should be retained. Each action has an opposite and equal reaction. Every single notion or materialization of thought can be utilized responsibly, if to promote rural utilitarianism or happiness within such society. But happiness is elusive in a society where a desensitizing, brainwashing, biased propaganda machine labeled as the media exists. My remedy to circumvent this dumbing down of utopians would call for the unbiased institution of the grassroots-oriented broadcasting system that reports the facts and doesn't speculate or distort the realistic truth. This system would be apt to accommodate public input as well as, so an oligarchic partnership of corporations don't evoke a collapse of honesty and unbiasedness. So those are my surface level perceptions of an ideal, imperfect, utopian society. But now I have some questions for you to answer in the comments below. Should weapons be legal in a utopian society if, for instance, guns were not commercialized to begin with? Would abolishing currency halt human avarice for more, resulting in the lack of modernization? And lastly, without evil in a utopian society, what exactly is good? So thanks for watching, and be sure to check out libertarianglobal.com, a community and media hub for change, freedom, and the free flow of information. In liberty and vigilance, Andrew Demeter, signing off.